Think you need weed and feed to have a great lawn? You actually don't. This lawn behind me has seen zero weed and feed, and look how nice it is. In fact, weed and feed is killing your grass, and using it might be doing more harm than good to your health and to your pets. Local governments are asking the EPA to ban the ingredients inside these bags. Millions of homeowners are walking into hardware stores right now, grabbing a bag of weed and feed and expecting great results. But by the end of the month, they'll be standing in the yard staring at yellow burn streaks, thin patches near the driveway, and more weeds than they had before, wondering how it all fell apart so fast. My name is Lenny, and I've spent the last 20 years fixing lawns for a living. Let's get into it. You see, weed and feed isn't one product. It's multiple chemicals mixed together, and they work in completely different ways. Some bags are loaded with what's called a post-emergent herbicide, usually a chemical called 2,4-D. That one only kills the weeds you can already see poking up out of the lawn. Broadleaf stuff mostly, like dandelions and clover. Other bags are loaded with something totally different called a pre-emergent. A pre-emergent does the opposite job. It kills weed seeds down in the soil before they ever sprout, which is why you'll see it marketed as crabgrass preventer. It does nothing to the dandelion already staring at you in the front yard. So you've got two completely different chemicals doing two completely different jobs at two completely different times of the year, all mashed into bags that look almost identical on the shelf. The average homeowner has no idea which one they just grabbed, spreads it wherever, and gets almost no weed control, while still dumping chemical all over the yard. You can forget about weed and feed. I'll show you the simple spray and feed combo I use instead later in the video, and it costs less and works 10 times better. The core problem is that killing weeds and feeding your lawn need to happen at completely different times of the year. They're not on the same schedule, not even close. Take a pre-emergent for crabgrass. That stuff has to be sitting in the soil before the seeds sprout, and crabgrass sprouts once your soil temperature holds above about 55 degrees for 7 to 10 days straight. So you're putting it down in early spring while it's still cold out. Trouble is, your lawn is still asleep at that point. The roots aren't active yet, so the fertilizer riding along in that bag has nothing to do. It just sits on top of the soil until the next rain washes it straight down through the ground and into the groundwater. You paid for fertilizer, and it ended up in the storm drain. The gap between those two jobs is huge. In the Midwest, you're spreading pre-emergent in early March, but your lawn doesn't want to be fed until about the middle of May. Down in North Florida, you're out there around the 1st of March, but the grass isn't hungry until mid-April. That's 6 to 10 weeks between when the weed killer needs to hit and when the grass wants to eat, and there's no way to fix that with one bag. Flip it the other way, and it's the same story. Post-emergents, the kind that kill dandelions and clover you can already see, work best when those weeds are actively growing. Dandelions peak in mid-spring, clover blows up in early summer, and your grass wants its big meal at yet another time. 3 different jobs, 3 different weekends, and the bag on your porch is asking you to do all 3 at once. It's a setup for failure. Don't panic though, because later in this video, I'll walk you through the exact order I use to feed the lawn and hit the weeds on their own schedules, and you can knock it all out in one afternoon. But bad timing is only the start. Most guys I talk to about lawns are done with spending money on fertilizer that doesn't work, done watching the same weeds come back every spring. If that's you, this book I wrote is the plan you've been missing. It's built around your specific lawn type, telling you exactly what to buy and when to put it down. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description to get your copy. Now, weed and feed damages your lawn because it is a broadcast product, meaning you spread it evenly over every square foot of your yard. Now think about your actual lawn for a second. The weeds live in maybe 5 or 10% of it. A dandelion here, a patch of clover over there, some crabgrass creeping along the walkway. The rest of the yard, the vast majority of it, has no weeds at all. So you're dumping herbicide on huge stretches of perfectly healthy grass that don't need it. Why put weed killer on grass that's already winning? Here's the stat that stopped me in my tracks the first time I read it. Up in Canada, the province of Alberta banned the sale of combined weed and feed products back in 2010. Their own officials pointed out that using weed and feed can put more than 10 times the pesticide on a lawn than is actually needed. A government banned the exact product on the exact grounds I'm making right now. The smart approach is surgical. You treat the weeds and you leave the healthy grass alone. And the way weed and feed is designed to be applied only makes it worse. It's a 2-for-1, the bad kind. Granular herbicide is the weakest, messiest way to kill a weed there is. For that powder to work, it has to physically stick to the wet leaf of the weed. That's why the bag tells you to wet the whole lawn down first. So picture what you're actually doing. You're walking a heavy spreader across a soaking lawn, and that fine powder is getting on the wheels, on the sides of the spreader, all over your shoes, up your legs, on your skin. Your dog runs across the yard an hour later and rolls in it. And because the whole thing depends on leaf contact, you also can't water it in for 24 to 48 hours or you rinse it right off the weeds. One decent rain shower rolls through and your whole application is done. There's a reason the entire herbicide wall at the store is full of liquid. Walk into any hardware store and look at where the professional stuff sits. You spray a liquid on the exact weed you want to kill, it coats the leaf evenly, you step back, and it works. That's the effective way to do it. Granular is a compromise, built for one thing only: bundling the herbicide with the fertilizer in a bag you can dump into a spreader. The delivery method was picked for convenience, not results. And even if you nail the granular application perfectly, you have to set your expectations. Herbicide takes about 7 to 14 days to start yellowing a weed and 3 to 4 weeks for a full kill. So folks who don't see instant results panic, pour on more product, and everything gets worse from there. Now here's the half of the bag nobody warned you about, and it isn't even the weed killer. It's the fertilizer. Everybody wants to talk about the herbicide side of weed and feed. Nobody wants to talk about the feed side, and that's a mistake because it might be the worst half. When you broadcast nitrogen and phosphorus over every square foot of your yard, including all the spots that don't need it, the excess just runs off with the next rain or the next time the sprinklers come on. It ends up in storm drains, streams, ponds, and lakes. Here's the number you need to hear. It only takes about 1 pound of phosphorus and 7 pounds of nitrogen to grow 500 pounds of algae in a waterway. That algae blooms, then dies, then rots, and the rotting pulls the oxygen out of the water and suffocates the fish. Some of those blooms are toxic enough to sicken people and kill pets that swim in them. This isn't fringe stuff either. Around 2010, a wave of American states started banning phosphorus in lawn fertilizer for exactly this reason. So the broadcasting is really the root sin. It wastes the herbicide, it wastes the fertilizer, and both end up somewhere they shouldn't be. And then there's the part that hits closest to home: your family and your pets. I want to handle this next part carefully because I want to give you the honest picture on both sides. The most common weed killer in weed and feed products is a chemical called 2,4-D, and there are real safety questions around it. You're spreading it over the same ground where your kids and your dog play. Back in 1991, the National Cancer Institute ran a landmark study on pet dogs, and what they found was that dogs whose owners applied 2,4-D to the lawn 4 or more times a year had a significantly elevated risk of developing a cancer called canine malignant lymphoma. A later study out of Tufts University in 2012 found that dogs exposed to professionally applied lawn pesticides had roughly a 70% higher lymphoma risk. On top of that, 2,4-D and chemicals like it have been flagged for possible effects on beneficial insects and honeybees, and for showing up in runoff and drinking water. Now, the other side, because I want to be straight with you. The science on this isn't unanimous. An industry-funded panel later reanalyzed that original dog study and disputed the results, and the regulators themselves don't even agree with each other. The US EPA classifies 2,4-D as not classifiable for human cancer risk, while the World Health Organization's cancer agency, IARC, calls it possibly carcinogenic to humans. So take that for what it is. You don't have to believe the worst-case scenario to make a sensible call here. When there's honest scientific disagreement about a chemical, and you can get the same lawn results without broadcasting it all over the ground your kids and your dog roll around on, why take the gamble? Add it all up. Bad timing, wasted product, runoff into your local pond, a chemical nobody agrees on. And the real cost is what all of this is doing to the soil underneath. Which brings me to the fix. The first step, and this is the philosophical heart of the whole thing, is to stop treating weeds like the disease. Weeds are almost always a symptom. They move into weak spots, thin spots, and bare patches, around the edge of the driveway, under the tree where the grass is starved of light, along the path where the dog runs back and forth every day. Fix the lawn itself, and most weeds simply lose their opening. A thick, dense canopy of grass shades the soil surface, and most weed seeds never germinate at all without light and bare soil. They just sit dormant down there in the dark, sometimes forever. So the real job is to feed the soil, and the soil feeds the plant. You do that by top dressing with compost, about 1/4 of an inch spread over the lawn twice a year. You can also use compost tea, earthworm castings, or an organic biosol type feed. Healthy soil biology is what makes a lawn dense and self-defending. Here's a test you can do this weekend. Go grab a long screwdriver out of the toolbox and push it into your lawn in a few different spots. If it slides in about 6 inches without much effort, your soil is alive and healthy, and you're in great shape. If you have to lean on it with real body weight just to get an inch down, your soil is compacted and starved, and what it needs is biology, not more chemicals. That one test tells you everything. Do it in the front, do it in the back, do it under the tree and out in the open, and you'll be surprised how much the reading changes from one part of the yard to another. That map of where your soil is soft and where it's hard basically tells you where every future weed problem is going to show up. Before I show you the exact products I use, you have to know these 3 free things, because without them, no product on earth will save your lawn. First is watering, deeply and infrequently. Aim for about 1 inch of water per week, including rain and 1 or 2 deep soakings, not daily little sips. Shallow watering makes shallow roots, and shallow roots make a weak lawn that weeds walk right into. And here's a free way to know if you're doing it right. Walk across the lawn and look back. If your footprints stay pressed down and the blades don't spring back up, the lawn is thirsty. Read that signal instead of watering on a blind schedule. Second, mow correctly. Never take off more than 1/3 of the blade in a single cut. Cool season grass like fescue or bluegrass, mow high, up to 4 inches in summer to shade the roots and hold in moisture. Warm season grass like Bermuda or zoysia, you can mow low, and that constant low mowing actually suppresses weeds on its own because it beheads them before they can flower and set seed. Third, overseed once or twice a year to keep the stand thick. Use a heavy rate. For a thin, cool season lawn, that's roughly 6 to 15 pounds per 1,000 square feet, depending on your grass type. Keep the new seed lightly moist several times a day for the first 2 weeks until it comes up. Step 3 is what to do if you still have weeds after you've built the soil and grown density. The rule here is simple: never broadcast. You treat the actual weeds, and only when you actually have them. Give yourself a full season on the soil and density work first. If you still have stubborn weeds after that, figure out what they are, then hit only those weeds with a spot spray. You go weed by weed and leave the good grass alone. Start with the least toxic products on the shelf. There are iron-based broadleaf killers that will knock down broadleaf weeds without touching your grass. An iron-based lawn weed brew is one example, though I should mention it's restricted in some states, California being one, so check your local rules. Another lower risk option is a product whose active ingredient doesn't have an established cancer link, like the active in the tenacity family. That one's especially useful when you need a chemical that won't kill the lawn itself. Quick hot weather warning here, and this one matters. Never spray herbicide when it's over about 85 degrees. Heat causes those chemicals to volatilize, drift, and burn your grass right alongside the weeds. Spray on a cool morning while it's still in the 70s, and always check the temperature limit on the label. And only reach for a pre-emergent when conditions actually call for one, not because it's the same weekend you did it last year. A cheap soil thermometer from the hardware store is one of the best few dollars you'll ever spend on lawn care because it takes the guesswork out of it entirely. Now, for those of you thinking, "Look, Lenny, I get all that, but I still want it simple." Fair enough. Here's the chemical light but effective shortcut you can run without ever touching a combo bag. For weed control, buy a liquid concentrated 3-way broadleaf herbicide, something like an Ortho-Weed Be Gone concentrate with crabgrass control. A 3-way product hits both broadleaf weeds and crabgrass, where the cheap combos miss crabgrass entirely. Mix it in a pump sprayer at the rate on the label, usually around 1 ounce per gallon for spot spraying. and always follow the label. The concentrate plus a cheap 1-gallon pump sprayer, about $12, gives you way more product for your money than those ready-to-use bottles they push at the front of the store. For feeding, do it separately. Buy a quality fertilizer with a small particle size. Smaller particles mean more particles per square foot, which gives you more even coverage, faster breakdown, and more uniform color. It's the same reason golf courses use fine particle fertilizer. Apply it at about 2 pounds per 1,000 square feet, even if the bag tells you 2.5. 2 pounds is the sweet spot for a good green up without burning the lawn. Order of operations matters here. Feed first, water it in, then wait until the lawn is fully dry before you go out and spray the liquid herbicide. Spraying herbicide on a wet lawn just dilutes it, and it won't work. You can absolutely do both the same day as long as the lawn dries out in between. And please, wear your protective gear when you're spraying. Long sleeves, long pants, socks, closed shoes, and gloves, exactly like the label says. That's not being paranoid, that's just doing it right. Now here's my biggest point of the whole video, and it's the through line for everything I've said today. Every single problem with weed and feed traces back to one bad idea: broadcasting poison and fertilizer over a whole lawn that mostly doesn't need either one. The better system is the exact opposite. Feed the soil. Grow the lawn so dense the weeds can't get in. Spot treat only what's left. Do that, and the lawn starts defending itself. It gets greener, it gets thicker, and you'll have fewer weeds every year that goes by. You stop buying a bag every spring just to fix the mess the last bag made in the first place. Follow this, and you're already ahead of nearly everyone on your street. Thanks a lot for watching. Please let me know your thoughts. Have you been using weed and feed for years without knowing all of this? Did any of it surprise you? Let me know in the comments. And remember to hit subscribe and click the video appearing on your screen right now for more real lawn tips.